Every night, something happens that would feel almost impossible if it weren't so familiar. You lie down in the same room, in the same body, surrounded by the same world you've been in all day. And yet, within minutes, your entire experience begins to slip away. The walls are still there, the air is still there, your body hasn't moved anywhere, but the sense of being present inside that space starts to loosen. It doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle at first. Your thoughts begin to stretch out, becoming slower, less sharp. The clear voice in your head that was making decisions, analyzing, reacting, starts to lose its structure. And then, without a clear moment you can point to, you're gone. Not physically gone, not erased, not unconscious in a dramatic way, but simply no longer there in the way you were seconds before. And that raises a question that sounds simple but is actually very strange. If your body never left the bed, if your brain is still active, then where did your consciousness go? To answer that, you have to change how you think about consciousness itself. Most people imagine it like a thing they have, something stable, something that exists continuously like a light that is always on. But consciousness is not like that. It is not an object, not a location, not something sitting inside your brain waiting to be used. It is something your brain is actively creating every moment you are awake. It's more like a live signal than a stored object. Imagine a broadcast that only exists while it's being transmitted. The moment the transmission changes or weakens, the experience changes with it. That's what your awareness is. It's the result of many different parts of your brain working together at the same time, constantly exchanging signals, building a single unified experience that feels like you. When you are fully awake, this system is highly organized. Different areas of your brain are in constant communication. Information from your senses is being processed and combined with memory, attention, and decision-making. Everything is synchronized enough that it feels stable. You feel like a single, continuous self moving through time. But under the surface, this is a very active and fragile process. It depends on timing, coordination, and the strength of the connections between different brain regions. And the moment those connections begin to change, your experience begins to change as well. As you start to fall asleep, the shift begins quietly. One of the first things that happens is that your brain reduces how much attention it gives to the outside world. Sounds don't disappear, but they stop being important. Light doesn't vanish, but it loses its impact. Your brain is still receiving information, but it starts filtering it out more aggressively. It's like a control panel slowly lowering the priority of everything external. At the same time, communication between the parts of your brain that maintain focus and awareness begins to weaken. The clear signal that keeps your thoughts organized starts to break into smaller, less stable patterns. If you could see this happening, it would look like a network slowly dimming, not shutting off completely, but losing coordination. Imagine a city where the traffic lights stop syncing, where conversations become scattered, where the rhythm of activity fades. That's what your brain is doing. It's still active, but it is no longer maintaining the kind of structure needed for clear awareness. And because consciousness depends on that structure, your sense of being present begins to fade with it. There is a brief stage where this becomes noticeable if you pay attention. Thoughts stop following normal logic. You might start thinking in fragments, jumping from one idea to another without a clear path. Images might appear for a second, vivid but unstable, like short flashes that don't fully form into anything real. This is not dreaming yet, but it's not full awareness either. It's a transition state where your brain is letting go of the systems that keep your experience grounded. And in that moment, the idea of a stable you starts to dissolve. Not because you went somewhere else, but because the process that holds you together is loosening. Then you move into deeper sleep, and this is where the question becomes even more interesting. Because your brain is not off. In fact, it is doing essential work. Your body is repairing tissue, regulating systems, and conserving energy. Your brain is processing information from the day, strengthening some connections and weakening others. But the specific pattern of activity that creates your conscious experience is no longer present in the same way. The signals are slower, more rhythmic, less complex. It's like the difference between a detailed conversation and a slow, repeating pulse. The system is active, but it is not generating awareness. At this stage, it would be more accurate to say that your consciousness is not somewhere else, but rather that it is not being produced at all in a meaningful way. The conditions that create it are not there. The network is running in a different mode, one that supports recovery and maintenance rather than experience. And because of that, there is no sense of time passing, no awareness of being in that state. Hours can go by, but from your perspective, it feels like nothing happened at all. Later in the night, everything shifts again. You enter a phase where your brain becomes more active, almost as active as when you are awake. This is the stage where dreaming happens. Your brain starts generating complex patterns again, creating images, sounds, and even emotions. Entire scenes unfold, sometimes detailed, sometimes strange, but often convincing enough that you accept them without question. You might be in a place that doesn't exist, talking to people who aren't there, experiencing events that feel real in the moment. But even here, something is different. The part of your brain that checks reality, the part that questions, that compares what's happening to what should be possible, is less active. That's why dreams can feel normal, even when they don't make sense. Your brain is generating an experience, but it is not verifying it. And this shows something important. Consciousness does not require the outside world. It only requires the right kind of internal activity. When your brain organizes information in a certain way, you experience it as reality, whether it comes from outside or from within. So in this stage, your consciousness hasn't disappeared. It has changed form. It is no longer connected to your body in the same way, no longer anchored to your environment, but it is still there as an experience. You are still present, but inside a reality built entirely by your brain. This is one of the clearest examples of how flexible consciousness really is. It is not fixed. It can exist in different modes depending on how your brain is functioning. And then, as the night continues, these stages repeat. Your brain moves between deeper, quieter states and more active, dream-filled ones. Each time, the structure of activity changes, and with it, the presence or absence of your conscious experience. But what remains constant is that your body never leaves, your brain never stops, and nothing actually travels anywhere. The changes are all internal, all based on how signals are organized. When you wake up, the process reverses. Slowly, the parts of your brain responsible for awareness and attention become active again. Signals strengthen, connections synchronize, and the clear, stable pattern that creates your waking experience returns. And just like when you fell asleep, you don't notice the exact moment it happens. 1 second you are in darkness or in a dream, and the next you are back, fully present, aware of your body, your room, your thoughts. It feels immediate, but it is actually the result of your brain rebuilding the conditions needed for consciousness. What makes this so strange is how seamless it feels. You disappear from your own experience and return without any sense of interruption. There is no gap that you can remember, no moment where you felt absent. It just happens, and because it happens every day, it feels normal. But if you think about it closely, it reveals something important. Consciousness is not continuous. It is something that can fade, stop, and restart, all within the same system. And maybe the most important part is this. Your consciousness does not go anywhere because it was never a place to begin with. It is not something that travels or moves. It is something that emerges when your brain is in a certain state. When that state changes, the experience changes. When the state is reduced, the experience fades. And when the state returns, so do you. So the next time you fall asleep, there is a moment worth noticing. That point where your thoughts begin to blur, where your awareness starts to loosen, where the world feels slightly further away than it did a minute before. That is not you leaving your body. That is your brain changing the way it is generating your experience. It is the process of consciousness being gently turned down, not switched off, not removed, but reduced until it is no longer something you can feel. And hours later, without effort, without control, it builds itself again. The same system, the same brain, the same body, creating the same sense of being you. Not because you traveled somewhere and came back, but because the conditions for awareness returned. And in that way, sleep is not a mystery of where you go. It is a demonstration of what you are, a process, not a place, a pattern, not a thing, something that can fade into silence and then reappear. Every single day, without you ever noticing where the line between being here and not being here actually was. I post videos that break down how reality actually works, from your brain to your body to the world around you. So if that sounds interesting, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.